So Waters has decided to think the unthinkable, and in his bid to reclaim the legacy of this once great band, has decided to re-record or reconfigure that iconic album from 50 years ago, effectively stripping away all the musical orthodoxy and graces that Wright, Gilmour and Mason brought to that specific album. The question we've got to ask ourselves is this tantamount to classic rock heresy? So welcome to another video about Pink Floyd. My word, they're a hot topic at the moment, aren't they? And welcome to my channel. If you're new here, please do click like, subscribe and check that notification bell. And check some of the links below this video for ways you can support the sterling work done here at Classic Album Review. Now, there's no doubt that Roger Waters is the conceptual and lyrical brilliance behind albums such as Dark Side of the Moon. But I've always maintained that Pink Floyd as a collective, as an outfit, would not be the Pink Floyd without the musical orthodoxy and grace that Gilmour, Wright and Mason bring to the proceedings, and likewise without the conceptual brilliance and lyricism of Roger Waters. That monster that is Pink Floyd seems a little bit toothless. We have to admit, after Waters seizes the reins of this, seizes perhaps not the right word here, perhaps picks up the reins after Barrett's departure, say in '68, he effectively steers the band away from all that English folklore, whimsy, myth and fairy tale, that affected innocence that Barrett brought to the table, and instead looked at more socio-political concerns. And after a period of psychedelic noodling and ambient soundscaping, which I've always said are far more spatial than space rock, we then get Waters' writing really come to the fore, and we get a wonderful meditation on the human condition that is Dark Side of the Moon. But is Dark Side of the Moon really going to be the album that we all love, when all the musicality and ethereal aspects of it are just stripped away to just leave us with the bare bones of Waters' messaging? And as you can imagine, what's brought me to make this video is Waters' decision to re-record Dark Side of the Moon in his own image. I don't really have a problem with that per se. A lot of people were very critical of what he did with Comfortably Numb, but he stripped away all the Gilmour-esque elements of that and just left us with something that was quite stark and sombre. I rather enjoyed it. No one is suggesting that it should replace the original. I mean, God forbid, but it can still stand alone as an interesting interpretation. In the same way the Byrds' Mr. Tambourine Man stands side by side as an interesting reconfiguring of that Dylan classic number. Ironically though, whereas the Byrds look to add an element of musicality and jangle to Dylan's classic, Roger Waters seems to want to do the opposite here. So what has prompted this reconfiguring of this classic album? Well, I think it's merely that. It's Waters proving that it's his work, primarily, if not his band. He told the Telegraph, "I wrote Dark Side of the Moon, let's get rid of all this we crap. Of course we were a band, there were 4 of us, we all contributed, but it's my project and I wrote it, so blah." It seems that Waters has decided that what was wrong with this piece of work is the beautiful instrumental tracks on it. I mean, I couldn't disagree more, to be honest with you, but nevertheless, I'm very open-minded about his interpretation of it. He said of his former bandmates, "They can't write songs, they've nothing to say, they're not artists, they have no ideas, not a single one between them, they never have had, and that drives them crazy." So the big question is, what can we expect from this new version of Dark Side of the Moon? Now, I must admit I really enjoyed Waters' take on Comfortably Numb. It was a dark, brooding affair without any light relief in the sense of that beautiful melodicism of Gilmour's guitar, but nevertheless I still enjoyed his interpretation of it. You may disagree with me, but I am quite open-minded in terms of what we might get with his reworking of this great album. And there have been some hints of what we can expect in the press already. For example, Time, that young man's lament for mortality, sounds terrific with his old man's timbre. Breathe is wonderfully reimagined as a slow acoustic groove. A country-tinged Money could be a late Johnny Cash cut with Waters growling charismatically at the bottom of his register. Register, see what they did there? I, for one, would be interested in this interpretation. I will certainly pay for it if it comes out as a physical format. I certainly won't be paying for the 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon. As far as I'm concerned, the immersion set has everything that I want, including marbles, which is something I think that this band has lost, quite frankly, all of them. But anyway, Dark Side of the Moon, the Waters version, I think it will be a somber, stark affair. I think it will lose... see, I always felt Dark Side of the Moon had a feeling of hope and optimism to it. Perhaps brought about by the musicality of the rest of the band. I mean, even the mortality sequence with Malcolm Muggeridge reading over it was interesting. But I mean, let's face it, Dark Side of the Moon without Great Gig in the Sky, a Wright Torrey piece, a penned piece, and of course I believe Wright was also responsible for the violent sequence that ended up as Us and Them. So you strip away all that music, what are we going to be left with? Well, let's wait and see, shall we? But I, for one, have the utmost respect for Waters as an artist and as a writer, and I will look at this as a kind of reinterpretation of a classic work and not froth at the gills about it. Anyway, that's a short video on Roger Waters picking up Dark Side of the Moon and doing his own thing with it. I'd love to know what you think of this story. I'd love to know if you would be interested in hearing it. I know I certainly would. Anyway, please do smash that like button and do leave a comment and share this video. Share the love, so to speak. Do click like, subscribe and check that notification bell. And I will leave you with my closing salvo, which is, as you know, hope you're well, staying safe, but more importantly that you keep listening.